Hey guys, welcome back to Course Correction Radio. This is going to be part 2 of the parable of the wheat and the tares. If you are new here, my name is Trey. I am a former pretender, now turned defender of the Christian faith, only through the grace of God and our Lord Jesus Christ. So without any further ado, we'll go ahead and get right into it because we've only been through a hair of this so far, and we'll pick right up in part 2. We're going to go to Genesis chapter 10 because as you saw in the title, this is the Table of Nations. Let's turn that off real quick. Whoop. Yep, getting ahead of myself there. Now, these are the generations of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood. Now, for the sake of time, we're going to skip right over Japheth. There is one interesting name in here, Magog, but as that is a topic for a different day. It'll come up a little bit, I'm sure, but going to try to avoid that. We're going to go right to Ham. And the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mitzrayim, that's Egypt, and Put, and Canaan. Now, I think we're all familiar with Canaan, as in the father of the Canaanites. And the sons of Cush, Seba, and Havilah, and Sabta, and Rama, and Sabteka, and the sons of Rama, Sheba, and Dedan. And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Yep, that's right. We're going to be getting into that today in this episode, as you saw in the title. Very excited about that part. Lot to unpack. And Erech and Akkad and Calneh in the land of Shinar. And out of that land went forth Asher, and rebuilded Nineveh, and the city of Rehoboth, and Calah, and resting between Nineveh and Calah. The same is a great city. And Mitzrayim begat Ludim, and Anamim, and Lehabim, and Naphuhim, and Pathrusim, and Casluhim, out of whom came the Philistines, and Caphtor, which if you actually, I think it's in the book of Jeremiah. If you go to Jeremiah, you actually learn that the Philistines come from Caphtor. So, just a little bit of a side note there. And Canaan begat Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth. So Sidon, that comes up later in the book of Deuteronomy, if you're familiar with that, when they fight against Og, and who lives in Bashan, and his brother who lived in Sidon, I believe. And then you have Heth, the father of the Hittite. And then you have the Jebusite, and the Amorite, and the Girgasite, and the Hivite, and the Archite, and the Sinite, and the Arvadite, and the Zamorite, and the Hamathite. And afterwards were these families of the Canaanites spread abroad. And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as thou comest to Gerar unto Gaza, as thou goest unto Sodom and Gomorrah, and Admah, and Zeboim, and even unto Lasha. These are the sons of Ham after their families, and after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. So I really want to focus in on that, because, as you see right here, the Amorite, the Jebusite, the Girgasite, these are the people that the children of Israel had to go up against when they went to conquer the promised land. And as you know, the spies came back, and 10 gave a bad report, saying that the land was filled with giants, and they were like grasshoppers in their eyes. So, just to kind of give you an idea about the Amorites. The Amorites are kind of known to be the biggest of the giants. And I want to see if, yep, here it is. Yet destroyed I the Amorite before them, whose height was like the height of the cedars, and he was strong as the oaks. Yet I destroyed him from above, and his roots from beneath. So just want to bring that up, because if you are familiar with cedar trees at all, I think modern day cedars are about 30 to 40 feet tall. But the cedars of ancient Lebanon, actually, from what I understand, got up to about 150 feet tall. So, just goes to, before we go on, I'm really going to ask you to, if you are a skeptic in these things, really going to ask you to pray and keep your heart open. Just going to ask you to really put away preconceived notions and take the Word of God for what it says. God, He didn't put anything in the Scriptures by accident. Everything is there for a reason. Because, all right, so what's the point of going to show how tall the Amorites were? Just because these people, way bigger, having, quite frankly, the seed of devils within them, just goes to show you what a mighty God we serve. Because he did the fighting, right? When they came out of Egypt. As we saw, Egypt was part of the children of Ham as well. And if you have not looked into the oddities of the Egyptian people, really recommend you look into some of that. You see things like Ancient Aliens, where there was definitely something going on with the Egyptians. And I think even old Mitzrayim had some polluted seed in him as well. So, but we'll move on. Just wanted to go ahead and show that. So right there we have the giants introduced really quick back through the line of Ham. And I know, just for the skeptics out there, they're going to ask how the giants got back introduced, or how they survived the flood. Let's pop this up. We're going to head back to Genesis chapter 7. I actually didn't have this in my notes, so I apologize, but I do think it's very important that we understand that Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth, and Noah went in, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him. So this is the first time the wives are mentioned. If I remember correctly. I could be wrong about that. But what we do know is that the wives are mentioned after the fact that earlier it says all flesh had become corrupt upon the earth, and that only Noah and his family were left unblemished. So short answer to that is this corrupt seed most likely came through one of the wives, or if not all of them, because there's good evidence to show that there are giants in both Japheth's line as well as Ham's. But Ham really seems like, his line took the brunt of it, that's for sure. So let's head back over here to Genesis chapter 10. So we focused on that. We've got Canaan, the Jebusite, the Amorite, the Girgashite, the Hivite, all the people that God said go in, utterly destroy them, kill the men, kill the women, kill the children, kill the livestock, kill everything. Don't spare anything. There's a reason for that, and that is because these people, they weren't human. So, it seems kind of harsh when you look at it at surface level, but keep in mind here that this really shows you the love of God. He will go to whatever means necessary to protect his people, and we'll get into one of the reasons why they had to show no mercy to them later, because It is all about the protection of God's people. It's absolutely beautiful. And really, if you give this proper time to study this out, the gospel is even more beautiful. And hopefully we'll be able to explain that by the time this series of the wheat and the tares is over. So moving on from there, from the Table of Nations, that's a pretty concise version of it. We've gone through that, so we're actually going to flip right on over to chapter 11. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. So we have a one world government here. That's pretty interesting. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, and they found a plain in the land of Shinar. They dwelt there. They said one to another, Go, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar. And they said, Go, let us build a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. That is a bold statement. Keep in mind, this is the creator of the universe saying this. Nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord confounded the language of all the earth. And from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth. Which there's a reason it says, therefore they called it Babel, because the Lord did confound their language. Babel means confusion. Really, really, really important to understand that, because Babel would one day become Babylon, which we know if you are familiar with the series of Scripture, Babylon comes back up throughout the entire Scriptures and is, God doesn't have anything good to say about Babylon. Let's just leave it at that. The Lord did scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Now, we're really going to focus in right here on this part. They all have one language, and this is what they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them. So we're going to head over to a few extra biblical texts to really see what was going on here. So this is the book of Jasher. If you are not familiar with the book of Jasher, Jasher is actually mentioned twice by name in the scriptures, that being in Joshua chapter 10, where the story about the sun and the moon standing still. It says, is this not written in the book of Jasher? It is also in 2 Samuel chapter 1 verse 18. So this is definitely a biblically endorsed text. And it says, and Terah had 12 gods of large size, made of wood and stone. And after the 12 months of the year, he served each one monthly, and every month Terah would bring his meat offering and drink offering to his gods. Thus did Terah all the days. So this is Terah, the father of Abraham, which we know through the scriptures was a maker of idols. And so we're really going to get a look into the life of Terah here with Abraham real quick to set up the story of the Tower of Babel. And all that generation were wicked in the sight of the Lord, and they made every man his god, but they forsook the Lord who had created them. And there was not a man found in those days in the whole earth. Now, keep in mind, this is only a few hundred years after the reset that came after the flood, who knew the Lord, for they served each man his own God. except Noah and his household, and all those who were under his counsel knew the Lord in those days. And Abraham the son of Terah was waxing great in those days in the house of Noah, and no man knew it, and the Lord was with him. And there's a reason that Abraham, if you're not familiar with the book of Jasher, there's actually a really cool account about Abraham's birth was prophesied by a star that came and flew across the heavens and went to, it bounced around between 4 stars, and it was basically a prophecy that would say that the seed of Abraham would go to the 4 corners of the earth, which, as we know, is prophesied in the canonical scriptures. So it was actually really cool to see that, and Nimrod was not too happy about that. And let's just say he wanted Abram to die. So with that, that's kind of why Abraham is in the house of Noah, which we also know that God had plans for Abram. And so this was all the divine hand of providence, of God's providence. And Abraham saw, and the Lord gave Abram an understanding heart, and he knew all the works of that generation were vain, and that all their gods were vain and were of no avail. Man, that sounds a lot like the book of Ecclesiastes. And Abram saw the sun shining upon the earth, and Abram said unto himself, surely now this sun that shines upon the earth is God, and him will I serve. Now keep in mind, Abram was raised by an idol maker, so he did not grow up knowing who the true God, that would later be known as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he did not know who he was. He didn't learn about him growing up. Yeah, you know, we'll give Abram a little grace, and as you will see, God will too. And him will I serve. And Abram served the sun in that day, and he prayed unto him. And when evening came, the sun set as usual. And Abram said within himself, surely this cannot be God. And Abram still continued to speak within himself, who is he that made the heavens and the earth? Who created upon the earth? Where is he? And night darkened over him, and he lifted up his eyes toward the west, north, south, and east. And he saw that the sun had vanished from the earth, and the day became dark. And Abram saw the stars and the moon before him, and he said, surely this is the God who created the whole earth as well as man. Behold, these his servants are gods around him. And Abram served the moon and prayed to it all that night. And in the morning, when it was light and the sun shone upon the earth as usual, Abram saw all the things that the Lord God had made upon the earth. And Abram said unto himself, surely these are not gods that made the earth and all mankind, but these are the servants of God. And Abram remained in the house of Noah, and there knew the Lord and his ways, and served the Lord all of his life. And all the generation forgot the Lord, and served other gods of wood and stone, and rebelled all their days. And King Nimrod reigned securely, and all the earth was under his control. See? One world government. And all the earth was of one tongue, and of one, and words of union. And all the princes of Nimrod and his great men took counsel together, Put, Mitzrayim, Cush, and Canaan with their families. And they said to each other, come, let us build ourselves a city, and in it a strong tower, and its top reaching heaven. And we will make ourselves famed, so that we may reign upon the whole earth, in order that the evil of our enemies may cease from us, that we may reign mightily over them, and that we may not become scattered over the earth on account of their wars. And they all went before the king, and they told the king these words, and the king agreed with them in this affair, and he did so. And all the families assembled, consisting of about 600,000 men. That's just the men. And they went to seek an extensive place of ground to build the city and the tower that they sought in the whole earth, and they found none like one valley at the east of the land of Shinar, and about 2 days' walk, and they journeyed there and dwelt there. And they began to make bricks and burn fires to build the city and the tower that they had imagined to complete. And the building of the tower was unto them a transgression and a sin, and they began to build it. And whilst they were building against the Lord God of heaven, they imagined in their hearts to war against him and to send into heaven. So now we see the goal of why they wanted to go to heaven in the first place. Coffee break. And all these people and all the families divided themselves into 3 parts. The first said, "We will ascend into heaven and fight against him." The second said, "We will ascend into heaven and place our own gods there and serve them." And the third part said, "We will ascend into heaven and smite him with bows and spears." And God knew all their works and all their evil thoughts. And he saw the city and the tower which they were building. And when they were building, they built themselves a great city and a very high and strong tower. And on account of it, its height, the mortar and bricks did not reach the builders in their ascent to it until those who went up had completed a full year. So it took them a year to get to the top. That is insane. And after that, they reached to the builders and gave them the mortar and the bricks. Thus was it done daily. That is crazy. And behold, these ascended and others descended the whole day. And if a brick should fall from their hands and get broken, they would all weep over it. And if a man fell and died, none of them would look at him. Wow. And the Lord knew their thoughts, and it came to pass, when they were building, they cast the arrows toward the heavens, and the arrows fell upon them filled with blood. And when they saw them, they said to each other, "Surely we have slain all those that are in heaven." For this was from the Lord, in order to cause them to err, and in order to destroy them from the face of the ground. And they built the tower and the city, and did this thing daily until many days were elapsed. And God said to the 70 angels who stood foremost before him, to those who were near to him, saying, "Come, let us descend and confuse their tongues, that one man shall not understand the language of his neighbor." And they did so unto them. And from that day following, they forgot each man his neighbor's tongue, and they could not understand to speak in one tongue. And when the builder took from the hands of his neighbor lime or stone, which he did not order, the builder would cast it away and throw it upon his neighbor, that he would die. And they did so many days, and they killed many of them in this manner. And the Lord smote the 3 divisions that were there, and he punished them according to their works and designs. Those who said, "We will ascend to serve our gods," became like apes and elephants. And those who said, "We will smite the heavens with arrows," the Lord killed them. And one man through the hand of his neighbor, and the 3rd division of those who said, "We will ascend into heaven and fight against him," the Lord scattered them throughout the earth. And those who were left among them, when they knew and understood the evil which was coming upon them, they forsook the building, and they also became scattered upon the face of the whole earth. And they ceased building the city and the tower. Therefore he called the place Babel, for there the Lord confounded the language of the whole earth. And behold, it was at the east of the land of Shinar. And the tower which the sons of men built, the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up 1/3 part thereof, and a fire descended from heaven and burned another third, and the other third is left to this day, and it is of that part which was aloft, and its circumference is 3 days' walk. Now keep that in mind, because when we go to the next text, you'll see why it had to be that long. And there's actually historical evidence to apparently back up. I can't remember what scholar it was, but he said it was, I want to say 100 to 250 square miles. This was back in like the days of Josephus, I believe. You could still see the base of it. Many of the sons of men died in that tower, a people without number. So I wanted to go over that, and I do want to make a disclaimer. The book of Jasher, the reason we are using it is to get more of an insight of what the ancient world understood about this, because the book of Jasher is extremely old. I think the oldest complete copy is around the same age as, I think, the Leningrad Codex. Roughly, I could be wrong about that. It's a medieval text, definitely, and it's in Hebrew. But this next one we're going to go to is actually older than that. It is the Book of Jubilees, which is in the Ethiopic Orthodox Coptic Bible alongside the Book of Enoch. It was also found with, like the Book of Enoch, there were fragments found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So this is the Book of Jubilees, chapter 10, verses 18 through 27, And the cross-reference here is Genesis 11, 1 through 9, which we already read. And in the 33rd Jubilee, in the first year of the second week, Peleg took a wife, whose name was Lamna, the daughter of Sinar. And she bare him a son in the 4th year of this week, and called his name Reu. For he said, Behold, the children of men have become evil through the wicked purpose of building themselves a city and a tower in the land of Shinar. For they departed from the land of Ararat eastward to Shinar. For in his days they built the city and the tower, saying, Go, let us ascend thereby into heaven. And they began to build, and in the 4th week they made brick with fire, and the brick served them for stone, and clay with which they cemented them together was asphalt, which cometh out of the sea, and out of the fountains of water in the land of Shinar. And they built it 43 years were they building it. Its breadth was 203 bricks, and the height of a brick was the third of one. Its height amounted to 5,433 cubits and 2 palms. And the extent of one wall was 13 stades, and of the other 30 stades. So before I go any further, I actually did the math on that, my math was based off of somebody else's math that I was fact checking. Their math brought that up to around over 8,000 feet tall. That is an extremely tall tower. So keep in mind, the tallest building in the world at this present moment is the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, and it's only about a third of that height. So this was an extremely tall tower, if this account is in fact accurate. And the Lord our God said unto us, Behold, they are one people, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be withholden from them. So, if this is in fact true, and 43 years did equal up to about the 8,000 roughly feet that it was, I could definitely see how that is wow, talk about a unity of absolute evil. Oh. Anyway, moving on. And they dispersed into this, Go, let us go down and confound their language, and they may not understand one another's speech. And they may be dispersed into cities and nations, and one purpose will no longer abide with them till the day of judgment. And the Lord descended, and we descended with him to see. The book of Jubilees starts out with Moses on Mount Sinai, and the angels of the presence are basically giving him, the book of Jubilees is known as the second Genesis, and that's actually, like, if you look it up on the Wikipedia page, that's not me saying that, that's just what another name it's known by. And the angels of the presence are basically relating Moses the history of the world. And so when you see him, we descended with him, that's the angel speaking to Moses. We descended with him to see the city and the tower which the children of men had built. And he confounded their language, that they no longer understood one another's speech. And they ceased to build the city and the tower. For this reason, the whole land of Shinar is called Babel, because the Lord did there confound all the language of the children of men. And from thence they were dispersed into their cities, according to their language and his nation. And the Lord sent a mighty wind against the tower, and overthrew it upon the earth. And behold, it was between Ashur and Babylon, in the land of Shinar, and they called its name Overthrow. In the 4th week, in the 1st year, in the beginning thereof, in the 34th Jubilee, were they dispersed from the land of Shinar. Now keep in mind, like right here, it says they were building 40 in 3 years, right? Well, if you are familiar with your Old Testament, you know that a Jubilee is 50 years. So, it's interesting that they moved right from one Jubilee into another. So, there's that. Let me check, see how we're doing on time here, guys. Yeah, so I think check my notes real quick. We're about the 30-minute mark again, but we're going to move into this last part, which is we're going to look at the line of Shem. So we're going to come back over here. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived after he begat Arphaxad 500 years and begat sons and daughters. And Arphaxad lived 5 years and 30 years and begat Salah. And Arphaxad lived after he begat Salah 403 years and begat sons and daughters. And Salah lived 30 years and begat Eber. Which, by the way, Eber is where we get the word Hebrew. So the Hebrew word for Hebrew is Ivrit, and it has to do with Eber. So a little fun fact for you there if you didn't know that. And Salah lived after he begat Eber 403 years and begat sons and daughters. And Eber lived 430 years and begat Peleg. And Eber lived after he begat Peleg 430 years and begat sons and daughters. And Peleg lived 30 years and begat Reu. And Peleg lived after he begat Reu 209 years and begat sons and daughters. And Reu lived 230 years and begat Serug. And Reu lived after he begat Serug 207 years and begat sons and daughters. And Serug lived 30 years and begat Nahor. And Serug lived after he begat Nahor 200 years and begat sons and daughters. And Nahor lived 29 years and begat Terah. And Nahor lived after he begat Terah 119 years and begat sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years and begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran begat Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. And Abraham and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Iscah. But Sarai was barren, she had no child. And Terah took Abram his son. Whoops, went a little farther, guys, sorry. Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran, and his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife. And they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan, or Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there, and the days of Terah were 205 years, and he died in Haran. Now keep that in mind. We're going to move right on down. Genesis chapter 12, now the Lord said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country, from thy kindred. So, yeah, important part there, from thy kindred, because, don't know if you guys realize this, but Abram is not, like, I mean, I know this is probably pretty obvious to a lot of people, but Abram is not a Jewish man. He is a Hebrew, which means crossing over. So, fun fact about that, because he crossed out of Ur of the Chaldees, which was in Babylon, and went into that land and became the father of God's people. How cool is that? And from thy kindred and from thy father's house, Terah, and into a land which I will show thee, and I will make thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and I will make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. Now this right here is used a lot to talk about Israel, right? This has nothing to do with Israel. This has nothing to do with the land of Israel. Just want to really point that out there, because this verse gets misused by a lot of people, especially a lot of like dispensational leaders that are all about like the land of Israel, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's nothing really inherently wrong with the land itself. It is a very sinful land, but that's also a different topic for a different day. I will bless them that bless thee, curse them that curseth thee. This is about Abram, guys. And in thee, Abram, shall all the families of the earth be blessed. You really want to look up on the ultimate fulfillment of that, read the book of Galatians, especially chapter 3. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother, his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, and they went forth into the land of Canaan. To the land of Canaan they came. So God was telling him to leave Haran because Terah did not finish where he was going. He got complacent and died in the land of Haran. So really wanted to bring that up because now we see that the devil tried to so we talked about in the last video. I really want to make sure I explain this real quick because I didn't explain this very well in the last video. Really want to explain this. So we read Genesis 3:15 in the first part of the wheat and the tares, where God told the serpent, I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between your seed and her seed, and you will bruise his heel, and he will bruise your head. Right? So of course Satan naturally is going to do everything he can to prevent that from happening, which is why there was the incursion of the angels in Genesis chapter 6 to try to corrupt the seed of man to make sure the seed of the woman can never come, right? Well, as we see, that didn't work. Flood came. And of course, God in his providence allowed all of this to happen. And if you are ever wondering as to why that is, it is the parable of the wheat and the tares. They'd let both grow together because in order to truly destroy the evil seed, the good seed would have to be taken out as well, which would defeat the ultimate purpose of the gospel, right? But anyway, Satan tried to do everything he could to destroy that, but after the flood, through the curse of Canaan. Now, Ham was never cursed, but Canaan was. So through that curse, that fallen seed was reintroduced and allowed to grow to prominence, and they took over the promised land, right? But God, always one step ahead. I say one step ahead. I apologize, Father. I'm doing you an injustice there. God always several steps ahead. Had already planned for this and brought out his righteous remnant through the seed of Shem, which was the that's where we get the Semitic bloodlines that Jesus came through. Allowed Abram to come out of this land of confusion and establish a promised seed through which our Messiah, our Lord Jesus Christ, God in the flesh, would later come. So I really wanted to establish that because every time the devil tries to do something, God already had things in motion to make sure that this seed line was preserved. So we'll stop that there. Next time, we'll jump right into part 3, which is the Nephilim campaigns. We're going to look at Joshua through David and all the times that, or probably not all of them because there's a lot. But we're going to look at where they go in, and God says utterly destroy them, the women, the children, all the livestock, everything. Wipe out everything of these Nephilim, which is that word for giants, in Genesis chapter 6, these Nephilim bloodlines, because we've proved without a shadow of a doubt that's exactly what these are. So if you found this video helpful, please hit the like button. Share this out with anybody that you think might find this beneficial, and don't forget to subscribe so that way you can be notified. Hit the little bell. You can be notified when more content like this comes out. You can also find us on social media. We have a course correction MeWe page. We'd love for you to come over there. Love to hang out with you. If you got any questions, comments, please leave them below, or you can hit us up over there on the MeWe page. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me through this thus far. Look forward to the next video. Have a wonderful night. Blessings to each and every one of you. Take care.